This time I'd like to make a video on the so-called suicide of Adolf Hitler in 1945, an apparent suicide, and take out evidence that is on the FBI website. This is from the FBI Federal Bureau of Investigation website, the official website of the FBI online, and FBI records the vault on Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was leader of the National Socialist Party and Chancellor of Germany from 1933 to 1945. He led that country into World War II in 1939. The documents in this file range from 1933 to 1947, but primarily fall either in 1933 or between 1945 and 1947. In 1933, the FBI investigated an assassination threat made against Hitler. In the aftermath of Germany's surrender in 1945, Western Allied forces suspected that Hitler had committed suicide, but did not immediately find evidence of his death. At the time, it was feared that Hitler may have escaped in the closing days of the war, and searches were made to determine he was still alive. FBI files indicates that the Bureau investigated some of the rumors of Hitler's survival. These are the documents that you can view. And Federal Bureau of Investigation, synopsis of facts. The report's context with sorted out, Fontic hiding, Adolf Hitler claims to have aided 6 top Argentine officials in hiding Adolf Hitler upon his landing by submarine in Argentine. Hitler reported to be hiding out in the foothills of southern Andes. Information obtained from unable to be verified because of the disappearance. Attempts to locate were negative. No record of his in police and INS files. There is an official paper from the FBI investigating a claim that Adolf Hitler landed in Argentine. There is a report practically declassified by the FBI on their own website stating that they actually had a report or somebody view Hitler in Argentine in the Andes in South America alive after 1945. And I will check out another article on the so-called skull of Hitler. Fresh doubts over Hitler's death after tests on bullet-hole skull reveal it belonged to a woman. Adolf Hitler may not have shot himself dead, perhaps did not even die in his bunker, it emerged yesterday. A skull fragment believed for decades to be that of the Nazis' leaders had turned out to be part of that of a woman under the age of 40 after DNA analysis. Scientists and historians had long thought it was to be conclusive proof that Hitler shot himself in the head after taking a cyanide pill on 30th of April 1945, rather than face the ignominy of capture. The skull with a bullet hole kept in a Russian archive is that of a woman's, so the skull is not of Hitler himself. This is from the Mail Online News. So what do you have? We have an FBI document stating that Hitler was seen after the war in the Andes in 1945 in Argentine. That the skull practically that the Russians claim to have had from Adolf Hitler is that of a woman of around 40 years of age, and Adolf Hitler was back then 56 years old and a male. The thickness of the skull, the American experts or the scientists stated that the skull was that of a woman. Now in the following video we will see a short part of Ervil Armstrong speaking practically on Adolf Hitler.
Whoever's in charge, tell Virgil we were here and we like what he's saying. But it's interesting.
Germans?
Yeah.
That live on the Antarctica.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an article about Hitler a couple of years ago. It's quite popular. In fact, I think I'll give it to Werner in Munchen when I get down there and have it there for distribution to the people.
I'm interested in that, yes.
Yeah, you'd be interested in that article. Hitler, of course, did not die in the bunker, as everybody said. You know, he escaped.
It was a double?
Well, double, yeah. But to the dental plate, they'd identified him as not being Hitler.
Okay.
Hitler,
he did go to the South Pole?
No, he didn't. He and Eva went to Argentina, Buenos Aires.
Yes.
And he lived out his life there, he and Eva, and Hitler lived to be 98 years old.
So he died just like in the 80s or something?
He died, I don't know how he died, but I think just old age, really. Dr. Hertak and I were having breakfast in Zurich, Switzerland, and he said to me, he said, Virgil, he said, the international intelligence community is saying that Hitler was taken off with the UFO. Do you know anything about that? And of course, I was eating breakfast. I wasn't thinking, you know. And I said, no, I don't know anything about it. And then Jim got a phone call, and he got up and left. And the minute he left, I said, oh, my God, it's right on. Hitler had died, and then the Hanabu people, who are in Antarctica, came and got him and buried he and Ivan there, you know.
Okay, now we have aliens that crashed in America. Then we have German flying saucers, so to
Yeah, the Hanabu.
But they existed before the crashes, and so the source for Earth's flying saucers are not the crashes in America and Roswell. And
No, those were extraterrestrial, and they weren't German.
Did Germans have contacts with outer space
Yes,
people?
they did. Actually, before the United States. In 1929, the Germans were already on the moon.
1929.
1929, Professor
What
Phillips.
kind of Professor Phillips?
Phillips, yeah. And the Third Reich tried to enlist him to build UFOs so they could win the war, but he said, no.
We'll now check an article, it's called National Examiner, 1988, UFO Mystery Solved, their leftover Nazis spent on establishing a bloody Fourth Reich.
It is from the National Examiner, 1988. It's the UFO Mystery Solved, the leftover Nazis spent on establishing a bloody Fourth Reich. But we are interested in the survival of Hitler. Among the evidence Friedrich presents that Hitler is alive, the bodies of Hitler and Braun were never produced. The items introduced as evidence are only circumstantial: 2 of Hitler's hats, 1 pair of panties with the initials EB, and a few bones. The bloodstains found on the furniture in Hitler's quarters in the bunker were not of his blood type. The most important witnesses and the men closest to Hitler have never been found. There are too many reports and sightings, eyewitness reports, and even evidence that the suicide attempt was a brilliantly successfully careful staged scenario. That is from the National Examiner, 1988. That is the date. Well, that is a German book, Hitler Survived in Argentine, by Abel Basti and Jan-Ude Hauli. It's a really informative book, depicting practically all the evidence that you need to make up your mind.
Well, I just wanted to make a video portraying practically all the evidence that suggests that Hitler actually survived this so-called suicide attempt in 1945. I think it was a staged, fabricated event to make everybody believe that he died so that he could escape to the so-called South American colonies and so-called New Swabia in the North Pole or Antarctica, and there to the inner Earth. I believe Hitler survived and he built up the third power, the so-called UFOs that have been seen globally since the end of World War II, the so-called Imperial Germans, and that they are preparing practically this world for Judgment Day. And that he died in the 80s, 1980s, of old age, and that he most likely has offspring. Anyhow, cheers.